This is an amazing move as the Phoenix Suns go ahead and make another signing here with Brian Gregory and Matt Ishbia filling out the roster with 15 total players. And the latest player to be added is Jared Butler. So we're going to dive in and explore what Jared Butler could bring and present for Jordan Ott in this new system that the Suns are trying to bring out with this new identity for the future. All of that and more on this latest episode on Suns Digest. I'm your host, Bruce Veliz, and we had some news around the Phoenix Suns today as they already made one signing claiming Jordan Goodwin off waivers, but shortly after that, just a couple hours after, they go out and add Jared Butler. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Make sure to stay tuned tomorrow. As for the live stream, we will be going live once again at our regular scheduled time, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, to go over these latest signings more in detail for the Phoenix Suns and kind of figure out what the rotations or maybe some rotations in this roster could be going into the season with the team that we see so far. So without further ado, let's dive in. Let's get into the news in this video. Grab that snack. And let's dive in to another nice pickup, ultimately in my personal opinion, in Jared Butler, as I'm a huge fan of his game where he played previously, and I think he's a guy that can make a pretty decent impact if he is able to stick around. We saw today, like I mentioned, Jordan Goodwin was claimed off waivers from Shams Charania, and Shams Charania broke this down later in the afternoon, saying that free agent guard Jared Butler has agreed to a one-year deal with the Phoenix Suns, reportedly from Mark Bartelstein, where he told ESPN. The 2021 second-round pick averaged 9 points in 17 minutes over some games last year for the 76ers and for the Washington Wizards. And for the Wizards, he had predominantly played there and kind of made an impact over those last couple seasons, playing on a two-way deal going between the Capital City Go-Go and between the Washington Wizards. And as we all know, the Wizards weren't a great team and haven't been a great team realistically over these last couple seasons since they've traded Bradley Beal to us. So with that being said, he's had some time to compete and try to find out his role. Last year, in my personal opinion, he was very solid playing the point guard position and ultimately I think deserved getting a guaranteed roster spot on the Washington Wizards. But since the Wizards already had 15 guys under roster and knew that the trade deadline was coming, they ultimately traded a guy in Jared Butler to the Sixers for Reggie Jackson because he fell out of the rotation for the 76ers and wasn't going to be an impact player, and kind of similarly did what the Thunder and Wizards did this offseason with Dylan Jones and Kobe Jones. Basically, taking your player that you know you're most likely not going to have on the roster, but wanted to do justice for them and give them still an opportunity because you believe in them and have a good relationship with them. You trade them to another team and in fact take on someone else in return that you end up waiving or end up cutting. And for Jared Butler, that was where he ended up with going to Philly, where the Wizards were not very fond of Reggie Jackson and did not see the really need for him to play with their roster as they let go of him, where he then became a free agent. Jared Butler then played for the 76ers, had some run with them, but obviously with the Sixers dealing with injuries to Embiid, Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, all those types of guys throughout Jared McCain throughout the season, it was a very exploratory season for them, trying to find guys who could kind of really pan out. And this year with the Eastern Conference being a little bit weaker, the Sixers kind of are buying into their core, that the players that they already have being restrictive with their salary, and couldn't bring back a guy in Jared Butler as they ultimately let him walk, buying into some younger players that they had in the draft or picked up on the market elsewhere. So that where leaves Jared Butler to then potentially go to the Phoenix Suns, and that's where he ends up here. A player that can be a solid point guard, I think someone that can be a solid playmaker, a little bit more on the offensive end. Obviously Jordan Goodwin, like we mentioned earlier, was a defensive, scrappy type of point guard, a relentless defender, someone that's going to kind of be up in your face, up in your grill, being a pesky guy and being a pest on the defensive end. A guy in Jared Butler is going to be the opposite of that. He's more of a guy that's going to run that pick and roll, like I said, kind of similar to a guy in Colin Gillespie, and kind of be able to maybe get some tertiary point guard minutes here if there's an injury or just need it as some extra depth for this roster. But what it does say with Jordan Goodwin and the addition of Jared Butler today is that the Suns are once again buying into this identity of going into this youth movement here and kind of really buying into some young project or reclamation pieces that they think they can kind of blossom up into their own here into this season. But like I mentioned, Jordan Goodwin, our Jared Butler signs here. And the one thing to keep an eye on with Jared Butler, this was reported from not only Gerald Bourguet, but John Gambadoro as well, is that if the Suns bring in Jared Butler, they both expected for him to be on a non-guaranteed training camp type deal where he's competing with Jordan Goodwin for that 14th roster spots. The Suns do like Jordan Goodwin, though, and still could keep him. Obviously, the Suns waive Jordan Goodwin, then they have that cap hold of his $2.3 million, which would be a little bit more restrictive for their salary cap bill for this season. Ultimately, wouldn't handicap them in any way, but would make it more restrictive for them. Would definitely be a little bit difficult. But I do think this is kind of a tester for Jared Butler here kind of coming into Phoenix. And like I mentioned, Shams did not mention the non-guaranteed deal, but Gerald Bourguet and John Gambadoro both did. He said the Suns will have Booker, Gillespie, Goodwin / Butler if they sign Butler. This was tweeted before he was signed, with those two competing for that third spot. And he says, I can see Jared Butler coming in on a non-guaranteed contract, competing with Jordan Goodwin for that third spot, following that up there. So like I mentioned, we're looking at this roster and looking at this Phoenix Suns team. They now will be over this luxury tax threshold, bringing in a non-guaranteed veteran minimum and Jordan Goodwin's contract in, putting them roughly right around $192 million, putting them $3 million underneath the first apron, still giving them that flexibility even though they do have full roster at this moment to have the non-tax mid-level and the biannual exceptions in free agency if a player were to get bought out and they were able to facilitate a trade for any of the players in either Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, or potentially Nick Richards, who may lose some time or, options to thrive in this lineup with how deep it currently is constructed. Like I mentioned, with Jared Butler here, going back to it, he is on a non-guaranteed deal and could be coming into this training camp deal. So like Gerald mentioned, we could see some other guys get signed to exhibit 10-day deals, which are training camp deals as well for the Phoenix Suns, and those guys could also be in competition with a guy in Jared Butler for that final roster spot as well. With Jared Butler's non-guaranteed contract, obviously, since it's not reported that it's non-guaranteed at this point, they are expecting it is to be non-guaranteed. We don't know the exact number or the exact date that it would expire. My best guesstimate with that would be kind of comparing to some other non-guaranteed contracts around the trade deadline. So that would put the Phoenix Suns in an opportunity to where that if they signed Jordan Goodwin to a contract, and even if they didn't bring other training camp deals, but if they did, thought that he was the guy that, or Jared Butler, that was going to be the guy, then they can keep him on that contract. And then once they get to the trade deadline, if Jared Butler didn't work out with the team, or once again they found themselves in a situation where they wanted to give him another opportunity somewhere, they could eventually just waive him and kind of get out of that roster spot to explore other options. Now, like I said, Jared Butler is a guy that I think could potentially stand out. I do like him from his Washington Wizards days playing last season. I think he could be someone that could be a great value kind of pick there. Once again, similar to like the Delano Banton type here is a guy in Jared Butler who's going to be just experimental, trying to see if he can stick in the league and try to make an impact. And I think the Suns do believe in him if they are giving him this opportunity now. Like I mentioned, we'll have to keep an eye out if his contract does come out guaranteed, non-guaranteed, what the stipulations are with that. So I will have some more updates regarding that, and hopefully that can be out for tomorrow for the live stream. But like I mentioned, we will break down and look at some more stuff revolving around the Suns there tomorrow. So let me know your thoughts on the latest signing here for the Phoenix Suns and Jared Butler. If you like this signing, if you don't like this signing, what you would like to see the Phoenix Suns do with the remaining moves, as now the roster is back again full with 15 guys, even with Jared Butler being non-guaranteed with the acquisition of Jordan Goodwin off waivers. That will mean the Suns have 15 current roster spots. So the only way that anything can happen is via trade. So I have to keep our eyes out on names like Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, and Nick Richards, like I mentioned earlier. But once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hope you have a great rest of your night, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.